Welcome to episode 2 for Talking Point, everyone. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Mario Odyssey and loot boxes and what they may mean for the future of gaming. So, we're talking about Mario Odyssey in this episode because Mario Odyssey just came out and it's really awesome, obviously, right? But we're also going to be talking about loot boxes because it's a topic that was suggested by one of my patrons, Monolith Gaming, my boy Sean. But it's also a topic that's kind of relevant and controversial, and I think it kind of actually adds a little bit to what I want to say about Mario Odyssey. So first off, let's talk about what loot boxes actually are. And going into this topic, I actually didn't know too much, so I did a little bit of research. Okay, so basically loot boxes are something you can buy in certain games, something that originated with massive multiplayer online games like World of Warcraft, where let's say you pay like $10 and you can get an assortment of randomized items and power-ups, right? So say you pay, let's say it's whatever game, I don't know, some random game that gives you a whole bunch of hats, right? You pay $5 to get 10 hats. And let's say there's a chance that any one of these hats could give you a really awesome power-up, but there's also an equal chance that they'll give you essentially no value, right? So basically with loot boxes, you're kind of gambling on getting really beneficial power-ups or items or perks or what have you. Now, loot boxes are becoming more and more popular nowadays with all sorts of games like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, things like that. And a lot of those games are coming out this year. Now, why is this an issue? Why is this controversial? Why is this worth talking about? Well, there's a few different things. First off, loot boxes are basically kind of a form of microtransactions, right? Now, my voice, yeesh. I'm like doing this like really late at night. So, yeah, just bear with that. So, oh god, I should probably cut this out. But I'm not going to because this is Talking Point and I want it to be organic. Anyways, loot boxes are kind of like microtransactions. Now, microtransactions, we've seen a lot of that with free-to-play games on smart devices for a long time already. Now, the issue with that is that tons of kids have free reign and access to parents' Apple IDs and credit cards. So what happens is that, let's say they're playing Pokemon Go and they need 10,000 great balls. So what do? They spend a few $100s on 10,000 great balls. So then when daddy needs to pay the rent bill next month, guess what? He can't afford it because his credit card, well, he just has no money on it because it was all spent. He's already at his limit because this kid needed 10,000 great balls to catch a drowsy. That's kind of, well, a huge issue. Now, that's just kind of a random example, right? And you may not think that that's a huge issue, but it actually, there's quite a few cases out there where there are families that are fighting, with these game companies that are creating games that are facilitating kids spending exorbitant amount of money with their credit cards, with their family's credit cards. So I do think this is an issue. I think it's really unfortunate that there are some pretty poor families out there. Even if you're not poor, losing thousands of dollars because your kid has no perception of what money really is, or maybe they just don't care, it's hard. That sucks, right? But ultimately, I think the problem comes down to families letting their kids have access to their credit cards. That just doesn't seem like a smart thing to do with someone who's still developing and learning. And most of the time, you shouldn't really trust people with your credit card anyways, right? But this is happening, and it's unfortunate, and I just hope more and more families become more educated and these sorts of things don't happen. Now, with loot boxes, it's something that's becoming more and more popular with gaming consoles like, Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation. But I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue because those game systems have set up, like parental controls. There's a parental control sort of network set up so these sorts of things happen less often. But with loot boxes becoming more and more popular, I do think parental controls are going to be even more emphasized now. And there's probably still going to be some controversy arising with gaming systems because of more and more loot boxes coming out with different kinds of games. So basically, I'm just saying that I think there's going to be more parental controls, I guess, right? Well, just more of an emphasis. They're already there. They just need to be emphasized, so families need to be educated. But that's not the only issue here. The bigger issue here, I think, is that what do loot boxes kind of represent? Why are they in a lot more games now on game systems? Because they're kind of, well, a part of like a smarter business strategy, right? Where you have publishers that will not even fund a development of a game that's not like massively a multiplayer that offers a lot of loot boxes and microtransactions and DLC. Basically cheaper, easier ways to create a lot more money from that initial $60, $50 price tag. That sort of business structure is safer in terms of making lots of money. Because you see, in this HD era, or now it's becoming a 4K era, it's really expensive to make big AAA games. And that's a problem because there are some companies out there that they could spend 3-4 years on making a game. They have 100-200 people working on this game day and night, spending all their funds, their budget on this game, and then when they finally release it, for whatever reason, it doesn't sell good enough, and guess what happens? They're at a loss. Those 100 people or 200 people, a lot of them will lose their job, and that company may go bankrupt. This has happened multiple times already to even some big publishers, like, for example, THQ. They went out of business. This sort of thing has happened, and that's why a lot of publishers like EA are being very controlling of what kind of games they're making now. So what does that mean? Well, a lot of people are talking about how about the single-player genre is dying because it's not that smart business structure that offers microtransactions and loot boxes and a lot of replay value with a multiplayer game that people just keep on coming back to that very same game and spending more and more money on that one single game. Yeah, that is all kind of true, but that does not mean single-player games don't have a foothold in the industry still. They can still be successful. I mean, just look at Breath of the Wild. It's going to be the greatest selling Zelda game of all time. It's one of the highest reviewed launch titles of all time. It's still seeing a lot of success, and it's had a tremendous impact on the industry, and there's obviously still a market for big single-player games. It's not dying out, at least not yet, and I don't think it ever will, right? But I do think it may become a bit smaller. Not in the sense of there's still going to be the huge big games, and they're still going to attract a lot of attention like they do now, but I think there will be less companies making those big single-player games. I think the ones that can't really keep up with Nintendo or Bethesda or like those big companies, they just they can't, if they can't keep up with the Grand Theft Autos, the Skyrims, the Zeldas, the Marios, then yeah, they're probably gonna have to focus on creating more multiplayer games with loot boxes and microtransactions, or some of those companies may resort to indie game like sort of games, right? And here's the thing. There's a lot of people out there that haven't really given much attention to indie games. Check out your eShop. Check out Steam. There are so many amazing, super creative, very beautiful games out there that are also really cheap. And I'll tell you this. There are some indie games out there that may cost $5, $10, $20. They could offer a lot more replay value, a lot more fun, a lot more creativity, and it's kind of more of a refreshing experience than a lot of big single player or big multiplayer $60 games. So if you're watching this and you don't really give much indie games a try, again, check out Steam, check out your eShop, check out your PlayStation shop, check out your Xbox shop. There's going to be some really good games on there. Check them out. So yeah, I think single player games are going to become less common in the future because that's just where we're headed with the industry. However, the big ones I think are only going to get bigger and better. Look at Super Mario Odyssey. Nintendo clearly has mastered something here. Over their 30 years of developing games, they've really kind of found a way to... They've always been really good. They've always been arguably the best developers in the industry, right? But for something about Mario Odyssey that seems to have an extra level of polish. They seem to have this strong understanding of what keeps people interested, right? Like if you look at Breath of the Wild and you look what they seem to have expanded upon that idea in Mario Odyssey, this idea of sort of appealing to that childlike curiosity that we all have. We jump into the game, right, and we just see this one point, we're like, oh, that's really interesting, then we see something else. We're just constantly wandering around and being sidetracked and attracted to different interesting points. It's kind of appealing to our inner adventurous nature in all of us. And there's just something incredibly genius about the design philosophy that Nintendo seems to have now. And the way they execute it is, I think, better than ever before. So why is this happening? Because a big-time publisher like Nintendo has had years to grow and develop their developers and learn more and more. They've achieved a certain level of mastery, and they're doing something incredible with their games now. And we do see that with the big-time developers, like with Bethesda, or Bethesda. I mean, I'm just drawing blanks here, but there are other big publishers that still create awesome games, like Capcom and Square Enix. I mean, they were Resident Evil 7 and Final Fantasy 15, and of course there's Rockstar with the Grand Theft Auto games. I mean, the Grand Theft Auto games are some of the best games we've ever seen, So yeah, anyways, talking point here, super late, sorry, but there are tons of big games that are still happening. However, It's only with the big time publishers that are going to be able to find ways to, that know how to market their games, know what to appeal to, know how to create these amazing single player games and focus that and understand what their audiences are appealing to. They're going to be able to succeed in this big, super huge, expensive era of creating these, giant games. But for everyone else, they're going to focus on creating these multiplayer games with microtransactions and a lot of indie games. And I think that's the silver lining here. There are tons of indie games out there that I think a lot of people need to try. Yes, their budgets aren't as, huge, right? There aren't as many people working on these games. But the people that are making them are super creative. They're doing some amazing things. And honestly, like I said before, some of these games are better than a lot of $60 games that are out there now. So check them out. And as for Super Mario Odyssey, I mean, there's just so much that can be said about that game. It's amazing. I've only had it for a couple days, but I'm so glad I got to play it. I mean, it's my birthday today, and Mario Odyssey, I mean, it's just great that I'm able to play this game on my birthday. It's just so good. And, well, I hopefully will be able to put out a review for it later this week, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, guys, if you want to suggest another topic for future talking points, please check out my Patreon page. If you haven't seen this channel before, consider subscribing, and I'll see you all really soon. Bye.